The views, opinions, and statements expressed in the following program reflect the views of the program contributors and do not necessarily reflect views of CAB Broadcasting LLC and its management or its sponsors.
All your views matter.
रेडियो जिंदगी 1170 AM पे वेलकम लिसनर्स, मैं हूं आपके साथ ईरा। शो लेके आए हैं द शाह पिराली लॉ शो, ब्रॉट टू यू बाय द शाह पिराली लॉ ग्रुप. We are once again joined by attorney Shah Pirali. On air with us, he is the founder, president, and managing attorney of the Shah Pirali Law Group, which is based right here in Newark, which is headquartered right here in Newark, California. He is a member of American Immigration Lawyers Association as well as the State Bar of California. He is a passionate advocate of human rights, civil rights, social action, and social services. He has a strong interest in and knowledge of the political legal system in the U.S. He formed his law group to focus on the causes that he feels most ardent about. The law group focuses on immigration law with an emphasis on employment-based immigration, and they help clients all over the U.S. Earlier, like I said, this organization, this company is headquartered here in Newark, California. But the offices are in San Francisco and Washington, D.C. as well. So listeners, East Coast or West Coast, if you need help with your immigration cases, or if you know someone who's looking for professional help to kick into their immigration cases, immigration matter, definitely get in touch with the Shah Pirali Law Group. अगर आप फोन करके बात करना चाहते हैं ड्यूरिंग द शो, आप फोन कर सकते हैं स्टूडियो नंबर पे. यू कैन स्पीक टू अटर्नी शाह. इन सम टाइम वील ऑल्सो बी जॉइन बाय अटर्नी शरीफ. तो आप फोन कीजिए. स्टूडियो नंबर है 510-657-1170 पर. इफ यूड लाइक टू स्पीक टू देम प्राइवेटली, अगर आप डायरेक्टली उनसे बात करके कुछ अपना मैटर डिस्कस करना चाहते हैं, देन आप फोन कर सकते हैं उनके ऑफिस नंबर पे. इवन राइट नाउ एज वी स्पीक, नंबर है 510-742-5887. That's 510-742-5887. Get all this information on the website piralilaw.com. That's PEERALLYLAW.com. Attorney Shah, good morning. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Ira. Good morning to all the listeners. Of course, today we're going to discuss about immigration, but there are many things happening in the world which is really kind of sad, and we're going to discuss a little bit about that before we get Sharif aboard. So anything I'm going to tell you today is my opinion. You should not act or refrain to act solely on the information provided. You should contact an attorney if you have any questions. First of all, my heart goes to India. What's going on there again? We spoke about it last week, but it's really getting bad to worse. And unfortunately, it seems like many people are not understanding. They're still going to rallies. They're still doing stuff that are wrong. And this is going to explode. It's already exploding, but it's going to explode more all over the place. So people need to think what they're doing. And as you know, a lot of things also happening on the immigration front. For one, we have many of the embassies now closed in India for the next 2 weeks, and I'm expecting more closures to happen, more time of closures to happen. So in the next 2 months, you might not get any appointment, plus with the backlog, people who are stuck might not come back if you're outside in India. So stay safe if you are there, and if you are here, I recommend that you don't go. I know it's kind of hard, especially I have a lot of my clients' families have passed away because of the COVID, and especially passed away because of the lack of oxygen, which is really heartbreaking because India is one of the greatest producers of oxygen in the world, and I will recommend that people don't go. And I think you know all the stories.
Honestly, Attorney Shah, thank you very much for sparing time on this show to talk about this, because right now these days you can't really take a step without thinking about these things. You can't even walk 10 feet without these things occurring to you, or without some notification on your phone about people dying. And somewhere I read this, they're not dying because of COVID-19. They're dying because of the lack of treatment of COVID-19. They're dying because lack of the lack of medical help The situation in India is what I can talk about, because we hear so many stories coming in all the time. We can't even say every day, because there is something coming up every minute, literally, like at least, every 5 minutes. Even, in fact, right now, there is something which is circulating on WhatsApp about a family in San Ramon who's, one of the persons went to India to see his father. And then he had vaccinations over here, but the mutant in India apparently is probably more strong than the vaccine, and he got infected, and the test was negative, and he didn't make it. Can you imagine? So, and we were, when we were, I'm in fact running out of words. Before the show started, when Tanisha, you and I were talking that people are donating money, gathering all these big amounts of money. It's great that, everybody is coming together as a community, as humans, as humanity. But do we really think that the lack of medical facilities is because of the lack of money? I think that's not the problem. Even if we gather $500,000 or $100,000, how are people supposed to make, are they really going to make hospitals and medical facilities available in maybe a week's time? Maybe, make more beds available, because that is exactly what's going on.
No, but the worst part is that there's no effort, right, from the politicians.
Exactly.
They're more busy with their,
every single thing is politicized.
Nonsense, and that's what hurts the most, because the people are joining hands. I see people, different religion, standing together as one, and
exactly.
That's one part which is a positive side. But at the end of the day, it's science, right? So if you don't give a chance to science and you don't take any precautions, and we had 1 year to do that, and they could have done a lot of things, but instead they were all over the place, and that is happening. We saw that when Trump was in power. Look what it did, and we should have learned from that. And instead, we actually got it worse, and those variants now, the problem is that more people get it. All the neighbors, not only the neighbors, all the countries around the world. If this kind of entered, for example, the U.S., many people will die too, because it's not about, even America doesn't have this kind of facilities. Plus,
that's true.
Since you're saying, even the vaccine might not work, because this variant is a triple variant, and I heard now there might be a fourth one. I'm not sure on that is merging in that. So
yeah.
we are almost like in one of the sci-fi horror movies, like a Walking Dead situation. So
exactly.
We're going to get overwhelmed, and people have to think now, next time. Well, I don't know if there will be a next time the way things are going, but we pray there will be a next time. We need to think science. India is full of smart people. It's not like people are not educated. I'll say half of the population probably are educated, and those people have done a lot of good for the world. But what happens when they don't get a chance to bring their thing forward, and they get shut down, they get insulted, they get put in jail and things like that. And now we are seeing all this. You can blame it on any politicians, and I don't really care, because I will tell the truth. And we know what's happening there. You can deny it as much as they want. You can like the government, not like the government. I don't really care, because the truth is the truth. People are suffering, and we feel helpless, because no matter what we do, we try to send, like I know Saudi Arabia, for example, send a lot of oxygen there.
Yes.
America did the same. Some other countries did the same. Even my island from Mauritius sent oxygen there. But the problem is that is it going to reach the people, or is it going to be a selected few? That's another problem.
That is the problem, yes.
Yes, so
and all the money, in fact, all these funds which are being collected and donated, not just me, all of us really hope that it makes it to the right people who actually need it, and again doesn't just, get lost. In fact, there were also these videos which were circulating of these cops going to these marriage functions, the wedding functions which were happening, and the permit is only till 10 p.m. and not beyond 10 p.m. and they were literally thrashing people and asking them to get out of there. And we, when we watched the video, we're like, great, that is what one needs to do. But then can this really be also done with the election rallies? If you can't do it, because there even the cops can't do anything.
Exactly, and that's what really is heartbreaking at this point. It's just like when you have politics taking over human lives, and that's really the part which is heartbreaking. And people feel powerless because anybody, and they even getting upset are people who are telling the truth. They even ask that Twitter and everything don't publish all the stuff, and that's not the way to do it, because what happens to us around the world, in the U.S., if we don't know what's happening there, we will just keep sending people thinking everything is all good, and then guess what? Those people come back with the virus, and then suddenly you have the whole entire United States infected, and then the rest of the world. And also, they have not to be selfish, and that's the part that is really kind of hard to accept, and we can go on and on discussing about that, but we need to think, and people need to think next time, and don't just get into the what we call the BS of the, I don't know if I can use that, of the politicians, because the truth is that they don't really care. It seems like they're caring more about power than they care about the people. And that's not what a democracy is about. And we fought this for years in the U.S. with Trump, and we were able to get rid of people like that. Hopefully, India will wake up also and see things in a different angle.
Absolutely.
So now let's talk a little bit about immigration.
Let's do that.
Yeah, because
bottom line, just taking the vaccine and donating money is not enough. You really need to be smart. Also reminds me, I'm sorry, just taking one more minute. The CDC, when they released the statement yesterday saying that, people who've been fully vaccinated do not need to wear masks outside, I think it's going to backfire. I really think it's going to backfire, because there have been so many people who've been against the vaccine, okay? And then if people have, and because since it's not mandatory, not everybody is getting vaccinated. So this is going to be a great opportunity for those people also to not wear masks outside. They've been against the vaccine, against the masks. You know what I'm talking about, right? People have been literally protesting, and now they're like, okay, I'm vaccinated. I don't need to wear a mask.
Yeah.
And this will backfire.
The funny part is that what's the big deal of just wearing a mask, right? So it's not like the end of the world. You cannot do sports and stuff like that, but hey, have consideration for other people's lives, and that's what the thing is going to destroy us ultimately. That selfishness that we see among people. The people who don't want to wear masks. I'm not pro all vaccines, because I know some vaccines have problems, but I know also the vaccines will help at least to save at least some people, because right now the way humanity is going, we are going to go into more problems in the next few years. Climate change is hitting hard. My island, Mauritius, right now is completely pretty much underwater, and because of floods, and this is going to really kind of be the new world we're going to live in. Virus, plague, flood. It's almost like what we call the apocalyptic kind of scenarios that is coming up. But we can fight many of those. We just have to be smart. We have so much technology, and it's not like our country is backward. We can do a lot of good things. So we need to think and sit down and stop the nonsense fighting between religions, etc. Okay, so I think we have Sharif already here.
Yes, you are the oracle. You know everything.
Sharif,
we have him on air.
So before you start, Sharif, thank you so much for joining us. We were discussing a little bit about the situation in India, how bad it is right there, and how many people are suffering. And I don't know if you want to put some 2 cents on that, and then we can talk a little bit about what's happening on immigration front.
Yeah, I think we're all watching very closely the situation there, and are really just praying that they can be overcome. I know it seems that it's going to last forever, but these things have swept through other areas. The problem in India is obviously the dense population and the protocols. And I think unfortunately, we don't like to get into the different opinions, but truthfully, I think the Modi government is responsible because of the big rallies they've been holding and really, screwed up the country.
Right
it's such a sophisticated people with great intelligence that they have such a stupid leadership. It's just, it's kind of like how Trump was here. It's almost the same thing. So it's the Indian Trump, and hopefully we learn our lesson and can move to more reasonable and competent leadership so that people can live a better life.
Yep.
Exactly. That's what we were talking about earlier. We kind of covered that exactly, that what you said, because it doesn't make sense for a population who's we have a high educated population there, although a lot of people are not educated, but the problem is bigger than education. I think it's more a religious issue which they are not really kind of controlling, and that's really creating the same problem that we have seen with other in the U.S. But now it's worse because in India we don't have the infrastructure, etc. So having said that, I think now we can only pray, but we can help as much as we can. But at the end of the day, a lot of people are going to die. But at the same time, I wanted to let people know. Earlier, I had clients who were telling me, "Oh, I want to go. I have to go. My mom passed away. My sister passed away. I have to go." I understand. I have parents. I know how you feel. But you go there, there's a chance you won't come back. Not in terms of you losing your life, but there's no...
You might get
most
stuck
of the
over there
embassies
because
are closed, right?
with the lockdown and
Yeah.
everything, you just might get stuck there with the situation that's happening. Every day there are new
Exactly.
laws and rules and regulations.
Exactly. And then what happens then when you're stuck, you lose your job, you cannot come back, and you end up into a bigger mess. So think well before you go, because you can get upset at me. One got upset at me, say, "Oh, I will go, but your lawyer should find a way." How am I going to find a way? Right? There's no way. There's no embassy, nothing. No matter how good we are as lawyers, we can only do so much. And that's one thing that a lot of people also don't understand. We are lawyers, right? We do stuff according to the law. We do stuff according to the facts. We put it together. But we don't do miracles, right? And sometimes they expect that from us. And as much as we are good at what we do, we also have to go by the flow. We cannot really kind of create a whole case for you when it's fictitious and stuff like that. We don't do that. We take what is right and we use it for the right way. So people should know that, and we have experienced that sometimes when people don't understand that concept. Sharif, tell us a little bit what's going on. I heard you got some approvals there. What's going on?
Indeed. Yes, the approvals, I think, as we've kind of predicted for the changes that are taking place with the Biden administration have definitely increased. A huge level of positive, approvals, both in EB1A, National Interest Waiver, and other areas. And this was very predictable. I mean, I think that it's not so much that Biden is doing or the USCIS is now, doing anything that is out of the ordinary. It's just that they are kind of going back to a normal guidelines and following the guidance that's in the policy manual. So, that's definitely an improvement. One thing that I think we can also help with, just to wrap up the conversation about the COVID situation, is that if people are visiting the U.S., so if you are visiting the U.S. on a visitor visa from India, or your parents are visiting, or a relative is visiting, you could certainly extend, your stay because of the situation. So, it's a temporary extension for only 6 months, but I would recommend that you call the office so that we can arrange that for you. So that's something that is very, very important, because you definitely don't want to force a family member back into, situations there where, it's very, dangerous and things of that nature. So even if you are just on a tourist visa, you can definitely get an extension based on the circumstances that are going on right now in, with the COVID. So just wanted to throw that in there as well.
Yes, exactly. That's very, very important. People should know that, because a lot of times people miss that, and they think that they have to go. And we have done that last year, and it works. Even if you're already out of status, we can do non-proton, which is NPT. We might be able to keep you here, so give us a call. We'll be glad to look into your case. So that's a very
and then the other
point,
big change, as I don't know if you mentioned this earlier because I wasn't listening, was the policy guidance regarding giving deference to prior determinations when adjudicating extension cases has been reinstated. So where you have an extension, like an L1A or an H1B extension, involving the same parties, and the facts are the same, so the job is the same, there's no material changes or material facts, the USCIS is reverting to the prior guidance that was issued in 2004, which directs officers to defer to prior determinations of eligibility when adjudicating extension requests. So this is, I think, very, very good news for people who have been, really struggling right now with their H-1B extension, L-1A, L-1B extension, and other cases where you're just doing what should be a routine extension. It's been anything but routine for the past 4 years. So that is going to go back to a kind of stage of normalcy. So we're really excited for our clients who, are in a non-immigrant status and need to file those extensions, that they're not going to have to go through the misery and hell that, we have been going through on their behalf for the past, period of time. So that's a really, really big news. I don't know if you want to talk about that for a second.
Exactly. Yes, I was going to talk about that, but then we got into that debate with the situation in India. But yes, just to tell people in simple terms, what Sharif is talking about is, as you know, when we were filing an H-1B extension or something, when Trump took power, he asked the USCIS to go back in time and review the entire case. So if there was some kind of mistakes in an approval before something, they will bring it over and use it against you. But now Biden has reverted that, saying, no, if we already look into something, why do we have to double-check something again? Let it continue like that. We will take the one which is the last and basically use that. If you get an approval, probably you'll get an approval for the next one, which is an excellent news because many people suffered because of that. And that's the simplest way I can put that, right, Sharif?
Attorney Shah, we have a caller over here who'd like to ask a question.
Sure. Let's take the caller, Sharif, and then...
Hi, good morning. You're on air. Please go ahead.
Go ahead.
Hey, good morning, Shah. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. What can we do for you?
We are very happy that always you give a good guidelines and how to adjust everything. We are very happy to hear you since longer time. The best person is Shah, I have one doubt.
Thank you so much.
What is actually now the immigration, they said they are going to change and give work permits. So do you think it may change this year?
I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
No, actually what the government said they are going to issue a work permit after this year regarding the work permits are illegal. So is it really doing on their part or it's just a wording, just they are telling that thing, they will do it and they won't do anything?
Okay, that's a very good question. A lot of people were counting on that. No, it's not going to happen like that. And that's what Sharif and I were discussing, I think, yesterday. A lot of people are counting on something that is, it's like two birds in the bush, right? You are not even sure you're going to reach that. And I don't think they will have a blanket work permit for everybody. They have made cases easier if you file certain cases, but they're not just going to give work permit to everybody, unfortunately. We'll have to wait and see. I doubt it, and Sharif might have a take on that, Sharif. And we were discussing about that, and a lot of people counting on that, and they're not filing their cases, and they end up by losing their chance, right, Sharif?
Okay, thank you, sir. Nice talking to you.
You're
have
welcome.
a nice time.
Good luck to you. There?
Attorney Sharif, can you hear me? I'll try and get him again.
Okay. So this is, Sharif is here. Sharif?
No, I'm going to try and call him again.
Okay. So, unfortunately, I think we're not going to take any callers, Ira, because it's going to kind of conflict with Sharif's call, because today we want to talk about EB1. But just to let people know, the caller had a very good question. So what he asked is all those promises. Well, it was not really promises. A lot of people in the lobby groups have promised that, hey, there will be some kind of blanket work permit for everybody. It's not going to happen like that because it's a lot of pressure. Sharif, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. So I was just going to mention that many people not only have been waiting around thinking that there's going to be a magical, formula that Biden is going to put forward with whether it's work permit, but they're also doing that with the, other aspects of the immigration landscape. So, for example, we do see some very positive signs with regard to the visa bulletin dates even, but it doesn't mean that, there's going to be just a, huge jump that takes place without some congressional action. Only way that right now we can expect any change to the immigration law is when you get 10 Republican senators to agree with 50 Democratic senators and then you have 60 votes in the Senate, which will pass a law that the majority of the House of Representatives will agree to and that President Biden signs. So when that happens, then you will have change. It's not going to happen just because Biden seems like a nice old man and he means well. Okay? So people stop ruining your, chances of success and sacrificing the interest of your family because you heard something in the news or you heard something that was an article or that Biden is going to do one thing or another. There are executive powers. Those are limited powers. So, for example, like the guidance on, extending cases without, having to re-adjudicate them that we were just explaining a moment ago, that's something that is within the purview of the administration, of the executive branch. They were able to do that. But to think that things are going to dramatically change overnight is unfortunately going to lead you to a bad result.
Exactly. And it's important, Sharif, because what happened is that a lot of those newspapers, especially unfortunately from the Indian community, they have been writing a lot of stuff, mixing it and confusing people. And now people are holding it as law, and that's not the law. That's nothing that was really promised. It was just they were going to look at it. There was a possibility we discussed about that. But they want sensation, right? So they write a lot of stuff. And a lot of people calling me, when will we get that? But that's never been passed. How are you going to get things that are not even there?
Exactly. That's exactly the case. So I think just coming back to reality, I mean, one thing that is, I think, a benefit from the looking at the previous, guidance and what the new guidelines are saying is if you look at the USCIS policy manual as it pertains to, like, for example, EB1A, there is a provision in there that gives the officer the instructions to give deference to anyone who has an O1A. So if you are approved for an O1A, then and you apply for EB1A, the officer, they don't automatically approve you, but they are supposed to give deference or to look favorably upon your submission. And now that Biden has reinstated that policy, I think this is going to have a major, major impact on our clients. So anyone who is presently on an O1A, I would urge you to immediately contact us so that we could start your EB1A process, because this change that was just issued by USCIS is going to make a dramatic impact on your ability to file for green card under EB1A category. So you are definitely are able to benefit from this change. So I would repeat, anyone that has an O1A
go ahead, repeat that, and I have a question for you, Sharif. Go ahead.
Sure. Go ahead.
Well,
let me ask a question then. So basically, for those who just joined us, this is Attorney Sharif Silmi from our office in Washington, D.C. He's very, very good with EB1s, E2s, and he's a famous guy for that. And the thing is that, like, what you were saying is very, very interesting. People who have an O1A, their chances now are going to be increased because they will have to give deference to what was in the O1A. Now, before we even move to that next step, some people can try their stuff on the O1A. So tell us a little bit what is an O1A, what you can do. Then we can talk about the EB1A that is attached to it. Can you do that for us?
Absolutely.
For those who don't know, because many people don't even know what's an O1A.
Sure. So an O1A is a non-immigrant visa for individuals who have extraordinary ability. Non-immigrant visa. So it's not it's kind of in a way on an equal level with an H-1B, where you're able to work for an employer without having the green card, but it requires extraordinary abilities. So you have to go through a process of demonstrating 3 of 10 criteria that they lay out. Now, it is an easier threshold. So the O1A cases, for example, when we're thinking about an original contribution of major significance to the field of endeavor, our data and, research suggests that doing so under an O1A is far easier than doing so under an EB1A. So the requirements or the view of the EB1A adjudicator is going to be much higher expectation. They're actually decided at a completely different service center, where the EB1A is decided in either Nebraska or Texas. The O1A is decided in the California service center. And they tend to approve most of the O1A cases as long as you put forward a very, strong position. So I think anyone who right now, particularly those who are stuck without a H4 EAD and they're sitting in a H4, and you might be better off, going for an O1A. And the thing that you need to file an O1A will be an employer-sponsored visa. So meaning the employer will need to sponsor or provide the job offer that they're willing to employ you, and you have to demonstrate that you meet a minimum of 3 of 10 criteria. Now, because that employer is sponsoring it, there's one criteria that almost comes automatically, which is that you will perform in a critical role for an organization that has a distinguished reputation, because that criteria is within the power of the employer. As long as they have a distinguished reputation, they can go on the record and demonstrate that you are critical to their enterprise. So that is one criteria. The other criteria that I mentioned was a business or technology or scholarly contribution of major significance. That's the second criteria. Third criteria can be commanding a high salary. So if you're, for example, above $200,000 for an O1A, that would probably be sufficient. It depends on geographic, issues. So if you're less, you might be okay depending on the geographic circumstances. Number 4, have you reviewed and judged the work of others outside of your employment? A lot of people say, yeah, I've reviewed and judged others because I supervise other people in my job. That will not qualify, to be honest with you. What will qualify is if you are invited as an expert to review and judge a product or a business process or an approach that is being undertaken by a different company. That will work from an O&A perspective. And number 5, are you a member of an organization that requires outstanding achievement of its members? Now, here, I often, just to give you a tip, insider tip, we often, we're depending on IEEE senior membership for a lot of our EB1A cases. While it's a subjective decision for the officer based on the evidence that you provide them, for the most part, an O1A will accept the IEEE senior membership as, requiring outstanding achievement of its members and membership based on requiring outstanding achievement. So those are 5 criteria. If you have publication, that would be number 6. And you only, if you're mentioned in the media, that would be number 7. And, there's other criteria. So you only need to meet 3. So I provided 7 that are plausible for someone who perhaps, is working in a kind of upper level, maybe data scientist or IT professional, anything of that nature where you wanted to think about filing an O1A. If you're, for example, on an H4, you're waiting forever to get your EAD, this may be an option for you to get back into the work. Because we have 100,000 people now who are waiting for H4 EAD. I mean, hopefully that gets resolved, but in the meantime, what my clients have been benefiting from is, getting that advice of just going ahead and doing the O1A. So that is kind of the way that we can approach that in order for us to, successfully help the people that are out there. So, Attorney Shaw, I think that we, always try to think outside the box. I think that's what you have mentioned before. So this is a way of just kind of, instead of, again, depending on the government to figure things out, we're figuring things out on behalf of the clients. Because, while we could sit back and watch the news and say, Biden is going to do this or Biden is going to do that, whatever power we have in our hands, we should use that. So that's what I call all of the above, right? Let's do all of the above to put you and your family in a better situation. So that's what the ONA can do. And then once you have the ONA secure, then from that point, you have a precedent so that you can file an EB1A. And like we mentioned, with the new guidance that was issued by USCIS just the last few days, they will give deference or look favorably upon your case because you've already met the extraordinary ability criteria within the context of a non-immigrant ONA, and it would then translate to an immigrant visa under first category EB1A, which we know is current for India, and will probably remain so for the remainder of the year.
Exactly, Sharif. And again, so ladies and gentlemen, this is Dinesh Sharif.
There it is. We just solved the visa backlog.
Exactly. Somehow we just solve it with the EB1. And for people who don't know Sharif, he's an attorney. He handles all the office in Washington D.C. He handles all the cases of EB1, L1, etc. And he's very good at it. He's been doing it with us for a long time now. And we have very amazing results, and I think lately we got a bunch of cases approved one by one. But we also got some denials because the timing was wrong when Trump was here, but now things are getting better. But having said that, we are seeing a lot of problems coming up at the same time, and people need to know this, and they need to make sure that they don't count on things that are not there, count on things that are there, and that's what Sharif is saying. The gift is EB1. Some people might not qualify, but many people do qualify. So, and plus, we don't need an employer to work on that. So, especially EB1A, EB1B, and EB1C, you need it, but EB1A, you don't need it. So, just to remind people, anything you need, just give us a call, 510-742-5887. We will not be taking callers today because I want to discuss so many things. Sharif, there's another one now which is becoming really interesting, especially people from Pakistan and Bangladesh. I know we have a lot of listeners. The E2 visa, because a lot of them have been calling, and a lot of lawyers are just selling them all kind of nonsense because they don't know how it works. So let's talk a little bit about that, because I've been getting requests to talk about the E2. Unfortunately, the E2 doesn't really work for India, but it does work for certain other countries, so we'll cover that for 10 minutes or so. Tell us a little bit about that.
So the E2 visa is a treaty investor visa, and we do even we have actually clients who may have been, maybe have Indian background but born, either in the UK or Australia, who have also come into the U.S. with the E2 visa, Bangladesh, Pakistan, and the E2 visa depends on the treaty, and also it will follow citizenship as well, not only birth, unlike some other categories. So if you have citizenship of another country like Canada, you can still go for an E2 visa. And the E2 visa is an investor-based visa that does not require huge, millions of dollars. What the law says is that it requires a substantial investment. So that substantial investment is a relative term. For example, if you are opening a restaurant, a substantial investment may be between $80,000 to $120,000, and that would be sufficient to demonstrate that you are indeed going to engage in this business enterprise, that you're opening this business, and you need to enter the United States to control this business enterprise. So as the controlling individual for the business, you are able to be issued an E2 visa. Now, that E2 visa sometimes is issued for 3 years, sometimes is issued for 5 years, and it is renewable indefinitely. So you can actually live in the U.S. for a lifetime on an E2 visa, so long as the business enterprise is continuing. And many, people are benefiting from this. They want their children to obviously go to school in the U.S. They want to reside in the U.S. They want to have, their life here, their families here. So it's a very, very nice way to come in with relatively smaller amount of investment compared with an EB-5. And the good thing about the E2 visa is you can get it really, really quick. So when you apply for an E2 visa, you apply at the embassy or consulate. So you don't have to go through Department of Homeland Security straight away. And that actually makes the processing time very, very fast. So you can actually get a processing, you can get a processing within 2 to 3 months.
Exactly, and this is a situation that we have, and hope you're okay, Sharif. I mean, you talk too much today.
Yeah, a little bit dry throat. We're fasting here.
I know,
so.
dry throat. It happens to me. That's why I need breaks in the middle to drink some water. But just to let people know, we're talking about the E2 visa here. A lot of people see it as an avenue. Unfortunately, it's not available for people from India, but if you have a citizenship of another country, which falls into the category of the E2 visa, like Bangladesh, Pakistan, Egypt, France, England, Canada, things like that, you might be using that and to your advantage, and you can get in the United States, invest, make money, and things like that. So it is very interesting. We were talking about that. Now, Sharif, let's talk about one thing,
quick,
which is
one more thing about the E2 visa that people out there they might want to know is it doesn't necessarily have to be a brick and mortar business. Meaning you don't necessarily have to lease a physical space and open a business. Perhaps you could be opening a tutoring center that's teaching a particular language, or you may have a marketing company or a kind of tech-related company. So there's all kinds of business enterprises that may qualify for an E2 treaty investor visa that are not necessarily a traditional, mom-and-pop shop type retail enterprise, because we know, retail, especially in the COVID era, is not that popular right now. So there's other kinds of businesses besides retail that will qualify for the E2, just in case people out there were wondering.
Oh, that's very interesting, because I always kind of took it from the side of a restaurant, a franchise, and things like that. But you're saying also people can do certain other things. So this is an avenue people could really kind of investigate and actually call us if they want to do an assessment for the E2 for them. And just to remind people, this is for E2 visa. It requires you have citizenship of some certain countries. It doesn't apply to every country of the world, but many people from India also have like Canadian citizenship or British or something like that. They might use that to get their E2 visa. So, and consulting companies might be interested and things like that. So they should look into that. So Sharif, now let's talk a little bit. We have another 10 minutes to go, right, Ara? 10 minutes?
Yes, we have 10 minutes.
10 minutes. So we'll talk a little bit about now the situation of national interest waiver, because this is becoming one hot thing, because a lot of people don't realize that the national interest waiver, it's an EB2, and we can even take your previous priority date. Plus, it kind of protects you if you want to move from one company to another. For example, someone is with company A, they're moving to company B. Now they have to ask company B to start their labor certification, file their I-140, etc. But if you have a national interest waiver, you can jump from one company to another. When your dates become current, you can bring it, you can get your green card. Let's talk a little bit about the national interest waiver, because this is one of the probably least known green card in the community, because they see it as an EB2, but it has a lot of advantage, including basically getting extension on H-1B, et cetera. Tell us a little bit about that, Sharif.
Sure, yeah. And one big thing that I think people should be wary of is that you're seeing some, relatively good advancements in the visa bulletin, and I think that based on what we're seeing, we're probably going to see more advancements. And where people have already changed their job, and now they're with a new employer because they just happened to, get a better offer or just wanted to pursue a different path, and they are now saying, okay, well, my employer is going to file the perm, and it's going to take, God knows how long, and at the end of that, then they're going to file the I-140 or whatever the situation might be. The national interest waiver is a very, very good alternative, because it's something that you can get done within maybe 2 or 3 months and, go ahead and file it. And if your dates are current, you can actually file for your concurrent green card. And most importantly, you have all the power in your hands. You are not dependent on the employer. You're not dependent on a job offer. You're not dependent on an I-485 Supplement J, which is, certification of a bona fide job offer. And it allows you to just really, really have that freedom of changing jobs, as you mentioned, of not depending on the employer. Another big benefit for people who have maybe downgraded to EB3 so that they can file for adjustment of status is so many people left the EB2 category that we're probably going to start to see more rapid advancement in EB2 than EB3, but we really don't know for sure. So what I always advocate is all of the above approach. So if you have an employment-based EB3 based on perm, you can file a national interest waiver in EB2. That way you can actually sit in both categories. And depending on which one goes faster, you can do what's called interfiling, and then you can basically tell the officer to adjudicate according to which I-140 is more advanced. Because, look, everybody that did downgrade in October into EB3 so that they could file adjustment of status, we're now in April. Does anybody out there have a green card from this EB3 downgrade? I mean, nobody does. So because it was just, I hate to say this, but it was a manipulation by USCIS because at the time they were so desperate for the government fees. So they hit everybody over the head, $1,225, so that they could collect all of those big government fees, and they were able to kind of, keep their ship floating. But realistically, that EB3 downgrade is not going to result in an actual green card. You're able to get an EAD, all of that, but, if you change jobs, then you have some risks there as well with your I-140. So, realistically, the national interest waiver is a very good, I would call it insurance policy. And anybody out there that has a bachelor's degree, 10 years of experience, or they have a master's degree, will be in a situation where they could apply for a national interest waiver. And so if you have those minimum qualifications, then you can contact us, and we will take you through the rest and determine whether you're able to meet the requirements. Essentially, the main requirements will be that you work in an area that is of national importance that requires substantial merit. So we can kind of, craft your case in such a way that will meet the requirement. The big thing is how will it benefit you? That's what matters more. Because if there's a will, then we'll find a way. But you need to understand if you're either downgraded in EB3 or you're sitting in EB3 and you want to double it into an EB2 so that you could run both EB3 and EB2 concurrent at the same time and see which one becomes current faster, your earlier priority date would apply to either one. A previous priority date is able to be utilized for a subsequent
Hello.
I think his line got disconnected. I'll try and get him again.
Okay, so try to get him, but what Sharif was talking about, ladies and gentlemen, is having the national interest waiver going in parallel with your EB3. What happens then when it's time to get the green card, whichever dates become current, what we do, we just shift the I-485 of status to that other one, and you get your green card. So, Sharif, are you back?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I just kind of completed that part where we say we can just shift the I-485 once you get that date. So, Sharif, we have another 4 minutes, I think, to go. So tell us a little bit about anything that is kind of interesting going on right now that you want to talk about, or we can continue with the EB1A and maybe O1 visa, whichever is to your preference.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I'm going to talk about, that I'd like to talk about is just addressing the misconceptions that are there. Because so many people are just sitting back on their hands, waiting for October to come, and they say that, in October, everything's going to be current again, and, we can file our I-485. But I know people who filed I-485 9-10 years ago, and they never got their green card. The people who filed I-485 in October, God knows if they're going to get their green card or not. So just because your date becomes current for a small window of time and then it gets retrogressed again, it's not going to help resolve your problem. Let's do all of the above approach. Let's look at your case. Do you qualify for EB1A? Yes, no, maybe. If you don't qualify, you don't qualify. We're not gonna waste your time. Okay? Then the second thing is, do you qualify for a national interest waiver? And will it help you, more importantly? And we'll tell you how it will help you and how it will not help you. And give you all of your options. We're all about just making sure that you're aware of all of your options. We take an all of the above approach. If a national interest waiver is going to help you, we'll pursue a national interest waiver. If an EB1A is you qualify for it and it's going to help you, we'll pursue an EB1A. I mean, we're going to be completely honest with you. I had a client, he really, really wanted to file an EB1A. He was working as a Scrum Master, actually. He was making $95,000, and he said, I really want to file. I think I can make a case. I told him, look, you have a very, very low chance of approval. Your salary is not there. It's going to be a really tough case, but he did have some good things going on, right? And I don't want to reveal. It's a kind of older case, so it's not a big deal. But there is ways that we could kind of present things. So he happened to be working in the healthcare arena, in terms of the work he was doing, and that allowed us. Even his position was a Scrum Master, to present him as being among the very best within that very specific healthcare niche expertise area. And even though I told him you only have 20-30% chance of approval, he said, look, I understand, I appreciate your honesty, but I'm going to go forward. And we went forward and got his case approved. And the reason why I'm telling you this is to say that whatever your situation is, like, look, we're not hungry for, business. Thank God business is coming. So we'll tell you straight up, look, this is what your chances. It's going to be 20%, it's going to be 30%, it's 70%, it's 80%, it's 50-50. I mean, mostly it's 50-50. We can't really say. But if it's less, I'll be very honest with you, and I'll tell you that it's less than 50-50. So.
Exactly. And Sharif, now we're almost done with the show. We have one more minute, so I wanted to thank you for joining us, and we discussed about those different issues. And to kind of recap quickly, Sharif, we talk about O1 visa, the E2 visa, and the EB1 and the national interest waiver. And just also for people to understand that we do an assessment, right? We cannot promise you a win because nobody can do that. We don't win all our cases. But so far we've been doing pretty good. Most of our cases we win. So when we do that assessment, me and usually you do the assessment, I do kind of a quick preliminary and we put it together. And we know where you stand on your case. So don't hesitate to call us. We'll do your assessment. 510-742-5887. Sharif, you have 30 seconds to close, so tell us quickly, and then we can finish the show.
Yeah, like I said, I think it's just important that we put your family first, and don't depend on the news. Don't depend on what's going on out there. Do what's in your control. That's my mantra. Whatever's in our control, that's what we're going to take care of. And we'll be very, very aggressive on your behalf and make sure that you have the very best representation. So we can't always promise the result, but I can promise you that the case we're going to put together is going to be the very strongest case possible, as long as you have the patience to see it through and not jump.
Well,
thank you so much, Sharif.
I don't even have an immigration case over here, but I feel like hiring you guys and getting something done. Thank you.
Okay, take care.
Thank you very much for being here, Attorney Shah and Attorney Sharif, and thank you, listeners, for tuning in. You stay tuned to Radio Zindagi. And remember, you can call, of course, you can call Attorney Shapir Ali and his team on the office number 510-742-5887. Log on to the website, Shapir Ali's website, peeralilaw.com. That's PEERALLYLAW.